Dear Audrey, dear audience, it is great to virtually meet you all once again. It seems that after the first session on SEO practices, everyone got very excited, and we are around 50 here in Zoom. If any of you has already attended maybe one of the sessions of the Antrim Tourism Intelligence Journal, then you already know what is the goal of it. But maybe we have some newcomers, and what is left for me to say is that you have to stay connected and to be active today by asking questions, because with the help of the journals, with the contribution of the expertise of the tourism and marketing strategist, Audrey Scott, who you could already see in connected in the Zoom session, you get a unique chance to know what are the top recommendations based on the relevant statistics and useful tools which can be used in the area of marketing and promotion of your company, especially if you are operating in the tourism industry. Today we start the second part of the two-session journal, which is, as I said, dedicated to the SEO best practices for tourism businesses. As you might have already understood, in this session, Audrey will go much deeper into one of the most consistent or most important areas of SEO and the content marketing, which is the website content and the strategy. I would like to remind you once again, in case you are connected in the Zoom, right down you have the translation services, both to Romanian and to Ukrainian and vice versa. And at the same time, let me remind you that by registering to this session, the session will be recorded, and you also provide the consent for having your data and the and any photos posted or processed. By this being said, the last thing I would like to mention is about our strategic partners and the general partners we have. The entire Antrim Tourism Intelligence Journal is implemented by Antrim, the association I'm making part of, with the support of the USAID Edge buy-in Moldova Competitiveness Transition Activity, in partnership with the Association of Hospitality Industry from Ukraine. And we give our thanks once again for our partners. And with this being said, Audrey, the floor is yours.
Thank you. And just before I start, I believe in the chat there might be a few questions related to interpretation. I don't know if
sure. Let me check.
Okay.
Let me check, please.
So as you're working on that, I'll just briefly introduce myself. So my name is Audrey Scott, and I'm working as the Tourism and Marketing Advisor for the Moldovan Competitiveness Transition Activity, which is working with tourism in Moldova and is sponsored by USAID. This is the third journal that we've done so far. It's hard to believe we're already at number 3. And as Ina already mentioned, we're going to continue on the theme of search engine optimization. Last time, for those of you who are here, it was quite a lot of information. We're going to go even deeper into some of the topics today. And the goal is to make it as practical and useful as possible. So I've tried to be very, again, find some practical examples, but I also hope that you will be able to ask some questions at the end. So I'll try not to talk too much to have time for questions. Does it look like the language and interpretation is okay?
I believe it is okay.
Okay.
So far, Mr. Sergio said it is okay. If there is anyone else who has issues, please let me know in the chat.
Let's see. And can you see my slides at this point?
Yes, it is
Okay.
all visible.
Perfect. Then I will get started. So as mentioned, this is the second part of the search engine optimization, let's say best practices course. And we're going to be focused a bit more on how to optimize website content. So in order to do that, we've got a few things that we are going to review. First is I'm going to do a brief review at the beginning of search engine optimization in general. It's a good review for those of you who are part of the first journal, but it's also for those of you who perhaps were not here last time to kind of get you up to a similar speed. And because this is a topic that one can spend a lot of time researching and looking into, it's an overview, but hopefully you'll get the basics. Then we're going to look a bit more into keywords, which is a really important part of search engine optimization, or SEO. And then we're going to look at how to optimize current content, how to think about creating new content, and then the question of to blog or not to blog, as this was a question that came up recently with your questions as part of the registration, but then also in some other conversations that I've had. So just before we get started, remember the goal of SEO is to drive the right traffic to your website via search. And what that means by the right traffic is your potential customers. The reality is you don't need to have the whole world on your website if they're not your potential customers. But what the goal of search engine optimization is to match your content with the interests of your target audience, your potential customers, so that way they find your website and that way they can hopefully act on your website or book a tour or whatever it is that your business is about. Now, last time I gave a little bit of homework at the end in terms of asking you if to optimize a web page or a page on your website. So I'm kind of curious, you can let me know in the chat, did anyone do this homework? And if so, what was the experience and what did you learn? Or did you have any insights in the process? So I'm not going to check up on you right now, but I will look at the chat later to see how that worked. So just a reminder about SEO, what it really is about, because it's a jargon that's used quite a lot. As I mentioned, it's about driving the right traffic, your target market, your potential customers to your website. And it's about customizing your website content for your potential customers. It's not about trying to appeal or to get everyone. It's, again, we want to be focused because we all have limited time, we all have limited resources. So we need to be focused. And it's about matching the searcher's intent with the right audience, with the right content. And this is important because it really is about the person who is searching. It's not really about you or your business or your website. It's about, it is in terms of what you're offering, but really search engine optimization is focused on meeting the needs of the searcher, the person who's looking for information. It's about answering a question, solving a problem, because this is what searchers, or this is what people go to Google to find. They're looking at ways to answer questions, to solve problems, to find information. How do I get to Moldova? What do I do when I'm there? And so the idea is that with search engine optimization, you're able to match your content, your website content, to what that searcher, your potential customer, is looking for. And it also is, in terms of the website structure, it also means having a structured website, so it's organized. Visitors can understand easily from the top of the page going down what the page is about, what you're offering, how to book it or how to engage with it. And this is also really important for Google because it is looking, again, from the top down about the information on your page. Are there headings? Are there subheadings? And so we're going to go into this a little bit more. And it's also, search engine optimization is about ranking ideally on the first page for a specific keyword. And we're going to look at keywords in a bit in terms of what that means. And it's also about having a quick loading page that is mobile friendly. For those of you who are part of journal number 1, I mentioned that one of the big trends right now with travel and tourism is people are booking things on their mobile phone more and more. So your website needs to be mobile friendly. It needs to be easy to book by a phone. And this is also something that Google is giving higher priority to websites that are mobile friendly. And I also want to make a note that I'm using Google as an example of a search engine because it's the biggest. I think it is over 90% of the world's search traffic uses Google. But what I'm talking about here with search engine optimization also applies to any search engine, whether it's Yandex, Bing. The principles are the same, but I'm using Google just because it's the biggest and it's what many people use. Now, this is again a review slide because it came up in one of the questions, which is how does Google rank websites in SERP? And SERP means the search engine results page. So when you type in something into Google, you have the results, and that is your SERP. It uses quite a few different components, including content, which is what we're going to be talking about today, because that's one of the biggest components that Google uses to rank your website in the results. It also uses backlinks, and what that means are links to your website from other websites. Maybe you got covered recently in the press, or maybe you worked with some bloggers and they linked to your website. So those are backlinks. That's also really important. We're not going to go into that today, but that's also something to always think about, is how you can get more links to your website. Mobile first, we already talked about. On-page SEO, we're going to talk about that a little bit today. Social media and buzz. This is the idea that if Google notices a lot of social media sites are talking about you, it tends to trust your website a little bit more. Usage signals, that's also the same thing. Are people spending a lot of time on your page, or are they clicking off immediately because they're not getting the information they need? So Google uses this information to say, is this website providing quality content? Is it answering people's questions? And is it fulfilling, again, what the searcher is looking for, what they are asking information about? And then speed, which is about page load and a simple code, because again, people are using their mobile phone more and more, and so websites need to be fast loading. So we don't have time to go into all of that. So what we're mainly going to be looking at today is the content and on-page SEO, which is the metadata. Now, some people say, well, is search engine optimization important to my company? Do I really need to focus on it? And I can't give you a definite answer because I don't know the situation of every one of your companies or your businesses or your organizations. But for the most part, I would say, yes, it is important to focus on, because you want your potential customers, or perhaps your potential partners, to be able to find your website based on what they're looking for. Is it possible to, oh yeah, thank you. So what does that mean? Someone goes to Google, they search in a question, they search in something that they're looking for information about, and they come to your website because your website shows up high in the search listings. So this allows your potential customers to know that you exist. This is important. A lot of times it takes customers, I think for travelers, it's on average 6 or 7 times to see something before they actually make a decision to purchase. So the more that your website shows up when they're searching for information about a trip, the more they know you exist, the more they know what you offer, and the more they know how your offer, maybe your tours, can meet their needs. It also builds trust, because if you're providing quality information, you're helping to, answer their questions, it creates a trust between that potential customer and your website. And people who trust you tend to be more likely to act, meaning they might be more likely to book a tour, or maybe they might be more likely to inquire for more information. So this all starts with having an SEO optimized website allows your potential customers to know you exist in the first place. And one thing I want to mention is several times in the last couple of months, I've been asked, well, do I really need a website? Can I just use my social media profiles? And I would say that having a social media profile is better than having no online profile, But one of the things to keep in mind is that you don't own your social media profile. You're dependent upon Facebook. You're dependent upon Instagram. I don't know if some of you remember last year when Facebook and Instagram, there was an outage. So with the website, you own that. This is your property and you're not dependent on an outside source for this. Now you are dependent on Google in terms of matching what they're looking for, but at least you own the website yourself. And another question that came up was, for search engine optimization, what is the end goal? Again, you want your potential customers to know you exist, what you offer. But when we think about a website and when we think about creating website content, which we're going to go into later today, we need to think about conversion. What is the purpose of your page? What is the goal of your website? So for example, if you're a hotel company, you probably want a website visitor to book a room. If you're a tour company, book a tour. If you're a winery, you want someone to visit your winery, maybe book a wine tour, or maybe buy your wine online. If you're a DMO, a destination, you want that person to visit your destination. And you also want them to visit it in the way that is aligned with your brand or that is aligned with, the new products. You want them to go deeply into your destination. If you're an NGO, this is one of the questions that came up. If you're a nonprofit, your website goal, it depends on the NGO, but it's really to help get information out to your target audience. And what I mean is maybe it's a community that you're working with, or maybe it's someone who's looking for more partnerships. It's also a way to promote your projects, to get more attention and maybe to get more partnerships or cooperation. But for a lot of NGOs, it's to provide information to their target audience, to the people that they're working with. And if you're a government, ideally, it's about providing information, providing better services. So as we think about creating new content and SEO optimized content, we always have to keep in mind, what is the goal of my website? What is the goal of the page? Because ultimately we want people to act on it. And just to put SEO into context in terms of the traveler journey and customer life cycle, I bring this slide out, I think, every time because I think it's important to remember that travelers go through a long journey before they get to you, before they get to the country, before they get to your company. And SEO is really most important in the planning and booking phase. A lot of times in the discovery and inspiration phase, that might come from social media. Maybe they saw something posted on Instagram, or maybe they saw a television show, or maybe they read something in a newspaper or magazine, and then they go onto Google and say, where is this Moldova that I just heard about and this amazing wine? And then from there, it goes into the planning and booking phase. And so that's where SEO really kind of plays the most important role. But I also want to remind you that SEO is not everything when it comes to marketing. So it's one part of a marketing mix, and all of us have limited resources. We have limited time. So it's understanding how to put our resources in the right places and how to balance, because it's impossible to do everything 100%. But just to remind you, SEO is one part of a marketing mix, but so is social media. So is newsletters. Some people have very strong newsletter communities. So is content marketing, even outside of SEO. So is PR and media coverage, paid advertising. So there's a lot of different things that go into a marketing mix. Same with direct marketing, trade shows. We're going to focus a little bit more on that in the next journal. But this is the idea that, don't think that if I just do SEO amazingly, all my, that takes care of all of my marketing. There's still more that you should be doing to have kind of a robust marketing. And to just give some examples, this is from Antrim, our partner here. They have their website, moldova.travel, which provides lots of information on Moldova. They have their social media, Instagram. And then I also noticed that they recently worked with a kind of film or TV production crew and are having a show come out in Italy, kind of a food and wine type show. So that's working with press and media. So this shows that they're always doing and active in all these different things. So today, we're going to be focusing on on-page SEO Last time we went into all of these things, and today we're mainly going to be focused on the first three, which is keywords, creating high quality and relevant content, and titles and subheadings for a clear page structure. And I'm going to try and make this as practical as possible. But again, please feel free to ask questions. There'll be some time at the end. Now, keywords, because keywords are a really important part of search engine optimization and understanding kind of what they are and their role. And so the keyword, which is actually supposed to be in the middle of that circle, I don't know where it went. What it does is it matches, as I said, your searcher's intent, whoever goes on Google. What are their interests? What are their needs? What are the problems they want to solve? What answers do they need? And also, people want responses quickly and easily. They want to get the information, they want to get it fast. And keywords are one of the ways that they do that. Keywords are the words they put into search to find that. It also matches, keywords match your content your offerings. Maybe it's a tour, maybe it's a winery, a type of wine, maybe it's a hotel, maybe it's a destination. So it's matching, the keywords are the things that connect, that potential customer with your offerings to make sure that you speak the same language. And we're going to go into that shortly. And the way that you do that is through your website content. So keywords really play an important role in search engine optimization, because it's really the thing that's at the core of it, or at the center. And a couple things to remember. Keywords are the words and phrases that your target market uses. It's not what you use. Sometimes, and we're going to go into a couple of examples here, and you might think, oh, who uses that phrase to find that information? Or why would someone use that? Of course, I'm doing all of this in English, but this applies to any language and any target market, whether your target market is Italian, whether your target market is Moldovan, Romanian, Russian, Ukrainian, German. It's the same thing no matter what the language. So it's keywords, and doing keyword research helps you get into the mind of your potential customer and like, what words do they use to describe my offering or what I'm doing or what I'm selling? So it helps you, doing keyword research helps you understand how your potential customer speaks, the jargon they use, the lingo, maybe sometimes it's slang, which also helps you understand them better. It helps you understand, you can create your customer persona, and it kind of gets into their head a little bit more. So the goal is to match how your customer speaks, the terms they use, the keywords they use, with your website content and your offerings. So that way you connect, you match via Google, basically. So you're speaking the same language, you're speaking the same keyword language. And just as kind of an example here, I used SEMrush, which is a tool that I'm going to be using, and I'll go into more details, to look at the comparison between the use of day trip, daily tour, and day tour. And as you can see here, day trip is searched for much more, for the volume, and this is for the United States, is 6,600 per month, while day tour is only 210. So again, as you start thinking like, oh, well, the tourists that are coming who want to book day tours, maybe they're using the term day trip, and maybe if I start using this keyword more, they'll be able to find me more. Or for example, food tour versus culinary tour. Food tour has a higher search volume, almost, let's say, over 3 times as much than culinary tour. So you have a tour that's focused around food, and then you have the question of, well, how do I describe it? Do I describe it as a food tour? Do I describe it as a foodie tour? Do I describe it as a culinary tour? What's the term, or what's the keyword or the key phrase that my potential customers are using, and how can I connect my website content and adjust it for that? So we're going to be using, we're going to be using SEMrush today in the examples. And the reason why I'm using this is because it's a fabulous SEO tool. I don't have any connection to it, but it's just one that I use a lot. And it has a free account. So the free account allows you, I think, something like 10 searches per day. If you want to go more than that, then it's quite expensive. I think it's over $100 a month, but at least for the free account, it helps you get started. And you can start playing around with it, and you can start using some of the tools that we mentioned here. So it includes, as you see on the left-hand side, there's a lot of different things that this tool will do, but today we're mainly going to be looking at the keyword overview section. A little bit on the magic tool, but mainly the keyword overview. And one thing to keep in mind is if you're putting in terms that you want information, your keywords that you're like, okay, what's the search traffic for this? And you're just not getting the results that you want, meaning nothing is coming up. Be creative. Start thinking of synonyms, start thinking of other phrases that might describe the same thing. And through that, you'll be able to play around with the tool, but also you'll be able to understand what are different ways of describing my tour? What are different ways of describing my guest house? What are different ways of that searchers, people on Google, are using to describe this thing that I offer or this information that I want to give? And the goal, and we're going to go into this in the next slide, is to find keywords that have high search volume and low keyword difficulty, because high search volume means that more people are searching for it, so it's a more popular phrase. And low keyword difficulty means that the competition isn't as difficult. Now, we're going to look at a few things where the keyword difficulty is somewhat high, but I think the idea is to just get an idea of how these two components or these two aspects of keyword research work together. So this is using the keyword overview tool. And I just used the example of Moldova travel, which is a very big keyword. As you see, it has like I think global volume is 3,700 per month, mostly in the UK. And what I did here is I selected the United Kingdom for this keyword research. And you can select any country, Romania, Moldova, Germany, Ukraine. That's one of the good things about this is it allows you to do your keyword research for your different target audiences or your different target markets, and also using different languages, of course. And there's three different areas that are important. One is the keyword variation, which again, you have one word, Moldova travel, but then it starts giving you variations on that word where you might start thinking, oh yeah, that's connected to my content, or that's connected to my offering or my business. Questions, because a lot of times people go into Google and they ask questions, and sometimes questions, if you're able to answer them completely, are a good way, again, of attracting your potential customer. And related keywords, which also are, they're kind of like keyword variations, but they tend to be a little bit different. So for example, in this, with Moldova travel, one of the things that came up was travel to Moldova from UK, because, you know, this is, I'm using the UK as the example. So if I were a tour company with the target audience in the UK, I probably would create some content or a web page about how to travel to Moldova from the UK, because the volume is pretty high and the keyword difficulty is pretty low. And so you're thinking, well, yeah, my potential customers, if they're coming from the UK, would want information on how to travel here, whether it's by flight or the different options. And the other thing to think about, as I mentioned, the higher keyword volume isn't always the best, because if the keyword difficulty is really high, then it will be a challenge to rank. And again, this is about aligning your content, your offering, your business with the keywords. It's not about changing your business or changing your offerings. It's about how you describe it. So you want the keyword phrases that match the best. Let's see. So I went into this example a little bit more. Again, this is with the keyword overview. And it's interesting to say, okay, if someone is, you know, I use the keyword Moldova travel, and then this gives me variations on that term, which show me these are the things that my potential customers might be searching for, or this is the information that they might want or they might need before they decide to take a trip to Moldova or before they decide to book a tour. So some of the things that, you know, has pretty high volume are phrases like Moldova entry requirements, or, you know, is Moldova safe? This is actually interesting. It's come up quite a lot in some of these different searches that I did, is people, they might not know very much about Moldova. So being able to answer that question, is Moldova safe, is important to give them that trust and to think, okay, this is a safe place. This is a place I want to book a tour. Or perhaps the best way to visit Moldova is through a tour because that ensures your safety. Or for example, best places to visit in Moldova. So a lot of times people are not necessarily searching for a Moldova tour, but they might be searching for best places to visit or visiting Chisinau or things like that. So the idea with this keyword research is to kind of get into the head of your potential customers, say, what type of information are they searching for that matches what I can offer? Or I can provide the information about this, which then builds trust, which then hopefully turns them into real customers. Let's see. So when we think about how to optimize existing website content, so the idea is you have a website page and you think, I really want this to rank better in search. I'm going to go and I'm going to look at it with fresh eyes. I'm going to put, my SEO glasses on and look at it with fresh eyes. So here's a process that is useful to use. One is to answer, what is this website page about? Like, what is the main topic? What is its purpose? Like, what do I want visitors to do on it? Do I want them to book a tour? Do I want them to have all the information they need on how to get to Moldova? So that way they think it's easy and it's accessible. And then they click to the next page, which is a tour. Am I building trust? Am I creating a relationship? Am I trying to sell my wine? Kind of, what is the purpose of this page? And what is the page about? And now it's important to do that first before you go into the keyword research. And then do your keyword research, like I said, using SEMrush, the keyword overview, and to look at what are some keywords related to that topic. The example I used right here was variations on Moldovan food or Moldova food. This is also the other thing you're going to realize when you're doing keyword research. Sometimes the keywords are not grammatically correct. So the idea is to find, when you're creating content, to have some variation on it so it is grammatically correct, or at least it sounds like a human is writing it instead of a robot. But again, it's to understand kind of what people are searching for. So for this, I looked at Moldova food or food in Moldova, different variations. And as you see, the top three entries, food in Moldova, Moldova food, Moldovan food, all have pretty high volumes at, I think, 1,000 per month. And the keyword density, the keyword difficulty is it's a little bit higher. It's 42, so it's a bit of a harder keyword. But if I look at that compared to Moldovan cuisine or traditional Moldovan food or Moldovan dishes, you realize that people are using the phrase Moldovan food or food in Moldova much more than they're using the phrase Moldovan cuisine. So if I had a page on my website, and we're going to look at this in the next slide, on Moldovan food, I probably, or Moldovan gastronomy, I probably would think, okay, well, this topic is about food in Moldova. So how can I use these keywords to, again, match the intent of my potential customer, the searcher in Google? So I would select one focus keyword. So this would be like the main keyword, let's say Moldovan food. And then I would choose 3 to 5 related keywords. So here it might be traditional Moldovan food or Moldovan dishes. So again, these are related keywords that, again, support the main keyword, because Google is smart enough that they want to kind of understand what is the theme or what is the topic, and they don't want you using the same word over and over and over again. So the related keywords allow you to kind of talk about the same thing, but in different words, and it's also more enjoyable for people to read. And then you're going to look at your content. You're going to look at your website page again and say, okay, does this keyword appear in my title? Does it appear perhaps in the tour name? Does it appear in the introduction? Does it appear in subheadings? And then I'm going to review all of that and then edit it, basically, to say, how can I include this keyword and these related keywords into that website page better? And in order of importance as to where to include these keywords, again, this is on-page SEO. One of the most important places is the metadata and the URL. So the URL is your website address. And your metadata is the title and then a description. So this is what shows up kind of in your search results. And when I did some consultation after the last journal, I noticed that a lot of websites don't have metadata. So this is something to think about. It basically provides Google a summary of what your page is about with the most important information. And then I would say, okay, well, is my keyword in my title, in my header? Is it in my description? You know, the first paragraph at the top of your page, or the first bit of content at the top of the page, is very important, because again, it's how visitors to your website understand what the page is about, but it's also how Google understands what the page is about. And then I would think, okay, well, in my subheadings, is that keyword or variations of the keyword in my subheadings? And then again, my body copy, which is the main content. Now, this is a little bit of a ridiculous example because it is the #1 ranking for Moldovan food, or Moldova food. And you can see that it almost looks like a robot at times because it's just everywhere. But I wanted to show kind of an extreme example of the main keyword Moldovan food, which you see in the red boxes. You see it here, you see it in the URL, you see it, you know, in the title, you see it in the introduction twice. You see it in the subheading, the H2 heading, but then you also look at the related keywords. So traditional dishes, you see that again, visit Moldova, Moldovan cuisine, Moldovan dishes. So the idea, again, this is a very extreme example, and I'll show a more normal example in the next slide. But I wanted to show kind of an extreme way of incorporating keywords and related keywords into all the important places on a web page. So this example is perhaps a little bit more normal. And again, it's related to food, because who doesn't love food? And food is a very important part of travel. So here, the main keywords or the focus keywords were Kyrgyz food, Karakol specialties, because it's an area in Kyrgyzstan that has kind of their own specialty, kind of like Southern Moldova, you know, has its own traditions and culinary specialties. And again, you can see the red, kind of the main keywords, the focus keyword, and then the related ones. So the main one's Kyrgyz food, Karakol specialties, but the related keywords are, again, best dishes to eat in Kyrgyzstan, or most popular Kyrgyz dishes, or specialty foods. And the other thing that I wanted to highlight here is what's really important when you're thinking about creating content for your website is this call to action. So this is talking about, you know, Kyrgyz food and Karakol specialties, but it's also trying to direct the visitor to the tours that they offer that are related to it. So there's a Karakol food crawl or food tour. There's a family dinner, you know, in a Dungan village. And so every time that you're creating content, you're thinking, what is the goal? What do I want to happen when a visitor or a potential customer gets on this page? And that's where you have the opportunity, again, to connect that content to your offerings or your business. You can think of this maybe as like a soft sell. Now, you're going to see some similarities when I start talking about how to create new content. So this is about looking at content that you have and how to optimize it. So doing your keyword research and then looking at all the different things like your titles, your introductory paragraph, your subheadings. Now, let's say you're trying to figure out what type of content do I create that's new for my website. And I'm going to do two different examples. So let's say you have a new product, you have a new tour that you want to promote. The first thing is to answer the question, what is the new product or service that I want to sell? You need to be clear about what you're offering and the purpose of that page. And then do your keyword research. Again, this is on SEMrush about that topic. So I looked at Transnistria tour or Chisinau day tour as just examples that I used in my search. And so you can see different results here. In terms of the highest volume and kind of lowest combination of keyword difficulty was Transnistria day tour from Chisinau. Number 2 was Transnistria tour from Chisinau. So this shows that when people are searching for Transnistria tours, they're also looking at let's say the jumping off point, kind of where they're going from. So they're thinking, okay, day tour from Chisinau, can I get there to Transnistria in one day? So the other example that I used was Chisinau tours. And so here, Chisinau tours, but then you also have best of Chisinau. That's kind of interesting. Also fun things to do in Chisinau with, again, decent search traffic, medium difficulty. So the idea is to kind of get an idea of what are people searching for about my offering or that I could answer. And then again, use that focus and related keywords in your page title, your description, your introduction, and subheadings. And the idea with this is to inspire and inform. So to answer any questions your potential customer might have, and I'm going to go into this more specifically. And this is, the idea of this new day tour to Transnistria. Here's what I would do. Purpose of the page, I want to promote this new tour. I want to sell it. The focus keyword, Transnistria day tour from Chisinau. Related keywords, Soviet tour, Transnistria tour, how to visit Transnistria. Again, just think of the variations and check them in your keyword research. I give an example of the URL, the website, example of page title, Transnistria day tour from Chisinau. Might sound kind of boring, but at the same time, it's what people are searching for. Meta description, this is usually 150, 160 characters. The example I came up with is our Transnistria day tour from Chisinau, Moldova allows you to easily visit this country that doesn't exist, and its capital, Tiraspol. And then I created a simple introduction, which would be at the top. Again, Google and visitors go from the top down, which is, explore Transnistria on this day tour from Chisinau. So you're beginning to see a theme here. See how this country that doesn't officially exist, but still does, including its Soviet memorials on this full day trip to Transnistria, including visits to Tiraspol, the capital city. We'll see what life is like on the other side of the border. I just made this up, so don't judge me on this, but it was just the idea of trying to show how you can incorporate your keyword research, your focus keyword and your related keywords into an introduction, into subheadings, as well as into alt tags for your photographs, because you just want to show Google and your potential visitors, this is what it's about, and to match that with the type of words and phrases they're using in Google. And I did this also very briefly for a new half-day tour of Chisinau. So focus keyword, best of Chisinau, because as I saw in my research, that actually has pretty high volume, not super difficult. And I thought that actually isn't a bad name for a tour. So maybe I'll call it the best of Chisinau half-day tour. And I realized I didn't change the meta description. But what I would do there is I would, again, incorporate our best of Chisinau half-day tour. It takes you to all the sites, as well as shows you all the fun things to do in Chisinau, because that was another related keyword that came up in my research as having pretty high volume. And actually, I think my tour and my guides really do know all the fun things to do in Chisinau. So I'm not lying. This is something that I will deliver to my customers. So the introduction that I wrote, see the best of Chisinau, Moldova's dynamic capital city on this half-day tour. You'll not only visit the main sites as part of our walking tour, but we'll also share our local tips on all the fun things to do in Chisinau. Again, I did this quickly, but you get the idea of how to incorporate the main keyword with related keywords, and then also to use that with the subheadings and your alt tags. And another thing to think about when doing keyword research, when looking for new content ideas, is you might be thinking, well, I want to add more content to my website that builds trust or that brings in more potential travelers to Moldova or to Ukraine. And I apologize, all these examples are Moldova focused. I did not do them Ukraine focused, but hopefully you get the connection. So for example, with this, as I mentioned, if I were looking at building out my travel website to Moldova with tours or other information, I would probably include content that's related to Moldova travel safety. Is it safe to travel to Moldova? Have a page on the website that answers those questions, as well as, do I need a visa to travel to Moldova? If you know specifically your target audience, like you're specifically targeting people from the UK, do I need a visa to travel to Moldova? And then answer that, or how do I get to Moldova from the UK? Answer those questions because your potential customers are wondering and they're looking for this information, and you can provide that to them as well as build that trust and hopefully turn them into real customers, to actual customers. And the final part of this, creating SEO customized or SEO optimized content is after you do all your research, your keywords, maybe you've already put together your page, go to Google and actually Google that keyword or that related keyword, and go to a private window or incognito. So because otherwise Google follows you around, they know your preferences. So go to a private window and choose the right geography for your target for your target audience. And then see, okay, does the page that I just created, does it, is it similar to what Google thinks is related to that keyword? So here I did Transnistria day tour from Chisinau. The first couple are tour companies, Viator spends a lot of money on SEO. So often if you notice, it's not a bad idea actually to kind of look at their pages and to see what they do and say, okay, maybe there's some things I can adjust to maybe be a little bit more like them. But then there's also blog posts, which again shows that there's possibilities, and we're going to go into blogging in the next section to create content that again draws people in, builds trust, and then you can connect them to the tours that you're selling that are related to it. And if your content that you've created doesn't match at all, then it's time to go back to your keyword research or to adjust your content, because otherwise you're creating content for a keyword that Google thinks is very different from yours. So again, it's matching those two things together. So just as a brief overview with SEO optimized content, the first thing is to look at the purpose of the content, the topic. What is the goal of that website content? Do your keyword research. Look at your on-page SEO. That means your title, your metadata, your introduction, your subheadings. Is the page content comprehensive? Does it answer all the questions a visitor might have about the topic? Can it be even more helpful? And does it have a call to action? Do you again, you've already answered what is the goal of this website content. Do you have a call to action, or do you have a way for a visitor to your website to act on it? Maybe it's a booking button, maybe it's a contact us button, maybe it's a shop or buy this button. And is it easy for them to do it? So I realize I'm going to try and go quick for the next section on blogs, because this is a question that came up several times, which is kind of, are blogs even worth it? I can't give you a definitive answer, but I can tell you kind of the difference between a blog and a website page, because that's another question I get quite often. So this is a website for Eagle Creek. They make travel luggage, kind of adventure travel luggage. So website pages are more static, they're fixed. They're more kind of sales oriented, kind of direct. Blogs, as you see here, tend to be more dynamic, timely. They're kind of on related topics. Sometimes they're on very niche topics, and it's more of a soft sell. And I'll show what that means in a second. So the purpose of a blog is to attract more potential customers to your website through blog articles on relevant and related topics. Again, think about, you're doing maybe keyword research for a new tour that you want to sell, and you're noticing, oh, everyone's asking about visa requirements for Transnistria. Maybe I'll write a blog post on that. Or maybe I'll write a blog post on best time to visit Transnistria connected to the holidays, or May Day or Victory Day. So these types of more specific niche topics. It also is a way to earn trust, brand recognition. It's another avenue for direct sales. And it also keeps your website active and updated, which is something that Google likes. So the example I'm using, which is Eagle Creek, one of my colleagues used to manage their SEO and also their blog content. She was content manager for them. And this page, which is basically a vacation packing list, the ultimate travel essentials checklist, is one of the top rated articles, blog posts for packing list. And what she told me is that most of their direct sales to the company came through their blog posts like this. It didn't come through people searching Eagle Creek luggage. It came through searching for something like a packing list or travel essentials checklist, which again, this is weird keyword speech. I would never use travel essentials checklist, but when I checked, travel essentials is actually something that people use and they search for. So she adjusted the title. And then as you see on the blog post, they have links to all their products that they're recommending, which again provides another opportunity to sell. So this is kind of one example of a blog. Now, to blog or not to blog, pros and cons. I mean, the pros, as I said, you get more traffic, you get more recognition, more branding opportunities, can build more trust. It also allows you to have some fun. Like here's an example from G Adventures. They have a blog post on 10 dreamy reasons to tour Italy. And then at the bottom of each of their reasons, each of their 10 reasons, they have a link to their tour that allows you to experience that. So it's kind of more of a soft sell. They're getting people in terms of, you know, why visit Italy or reasons to visit Italy, and then they're kind of selling their tours at the same time. Now, the negative parts of a blog is it just takes time and resources. It takes time to create quality content, SEO optimized content, and it also can take time to see results. So if you're doing a blog, don't expect you're going to put the blog post in immediately, you're going to have tons of traffic. It takes time to rank in Google. So it's worth considering. I think blogs are great, but it also is something that needs time and commitment. So those are the pros and cons, and a couple of questions I got from that recently. I also wanted to share, these were some of the questions that came in on your registration form. I don't know if I was able to get to, obviously I wasn't able to get to all of them, but I tried to combine a few of them together. One was about how do you design an SEO-friendly site? Simply put, the more simple it is, probably the better. Meaning it's clean, it's easy to read, it's quick to load, it's easy for Google to kind of scan it and also visitors to scan it from the top down. If you have too many pop-up things, that can be distracting. So kind of a simple, clean site is often the most SEO friendly. There's also a question about how frequently to update content and how to frequently to like SEO optimize your content. As often as is needed in order to make sure that your content is accurate, it's up to date, it's relevant. For example, if you still have on your website prices or dates from 2021, I would go ahead and update that because again, Google likes updated information. It wants to know that what it's giving searchers is the best and most updated information. Another reason to update your content or to do an SEO audit on your content is if you're using Google Analytics and you know that, and you notice that some of your pages are dropping in traffic. You're like, wow, I used to get 500 visitors to this page last month, and now it's only 10. What's going on? And so again, it would be the idea of going through there and going through the process, the checklist that I went through with your research, keyword research, look at your content again. There was also a question about desired length of content. Google tends to like longer pieces or longer content because it feels that it more comprehensively answers a question or provides more information. But the idea is that your content should be as long as it's needed, meaning answer the question, provide comprehensive information, but don't put filler content in there just to get it over a certain amount. So I would say minimum 500 words, but often a lot of the content that appears on the first page of Google is like over 1,000, again, just because it feels like the more information, more comprehensive, the better. There was also, this question was also related to Google likes long content, but website visitors have short attention span. So how do you reconcile these two things? And the idea here is your website pages need to be structured. They need subheadings because visitors are going to scan. They're going to look from the top down. They're going to be looking for like what the subtitles, you know, the subheadings are that are darker, bigger in font as a way to get the information, to basically get the information they need quickly. So this is why it's important not only for SEO, but also to grab people and keep them on your page, is to organize your page through subheadings so they get the information they need quickly. And the other recommendation I would make is to use SEO tools to help you. There's many of them out there. And the ones that I used here, that I also used in some of the consulting that I've done, is SEMrush. As I said, there's a free service that's like 10 searches per day. There's also key search, which I think is like $20 a month, which is also pretty good. Google Search Console, which is free, and it also provides you pretty good information on terms of which keywords your website is already ranking for. And then in terms of free browser plugins to show you, okay, which H2 subheadings do I have? Do I have a meta description in there? Here, this you'll have access to these slides later, but there's a few of those that you can use. And then for page speed, Google Page Speed, GTmetrix. And then if you're using WordPress for your website, Yoast has a free version and it's great. It kind of provides you the space at the bottom to put your meta title, your meta description, your focus keyword, and then it kind of scans the content for you to say, are you using your keyword enough? Maybe you should use it a little bit more. Are the sentences kind of clear? And so these are all things you can use. So I realized that I'm just at 10 o'clock, but I can stay a little bit longer. Or sorry, I'm in Berlin, so 10 o'clock my time, 11 o'clock Chisinau time. But I can stay a little bit longer if there are questions. So I will stop talking now and turn the floor over to you. And I'll also take a look at the chat to see.
Yes, maybe you can take a small break, maybe since you've really had a long time explaining and presenting. We've had some person saying that they would like to receive the presentation, and I've told them that as usual, all those who participate at the journals, they receive the newsletter, which you are helping us write, where they will also get the opportunity to download the presentation. Then we were discussing about the tools you've mentioned about, and some of them provide for the trial some basic information, but then you have to pay in order to get full access of the instruments. In case there is anyone else who has maybe some questions at the homework task, at the analysis that they have received, please don't hesitate to say something, to ask. Maybe there are some questions on the slides which we presented. Also, please feel free to interact with Audrey.
Yeah, I covered a lot of information, but the idea was to kind of give an idea, or to give an overview of how to think about existing content, but then also how to create new content using keywords and then also on-page SEO.
Someone has said that the information is quite comprehensive, but very useful. So it would take the participants some time to review once again the presentation and the tips you've given them today.
And I see that, I think Elena said that she was part of the previous journal, and she said that she did work on keywords and it brought in traffic. So that's great to hear.
Yes, I did work. Hi.
Hi, that's great.
I have a blog, so I'm not selling anything on it, but it did help a lot of people, and I can check like who visited my blog from which countries. So I have a question, like, should I put my Facebook page at the end of each article, or like a call to action, like you say? I think the action is missing.
You could either put your Facebook page, or given that you also work as a guide or you also work with other companies, you can also recommend, I mean, yourself as a guide, or you could recommend companies that are connected to the articles. For example, I don't know if you have an article on, I don't know, day tours from, day trips from Chisinau. You could recommend yourself, you know, as a guide, but you could also recommend some of the tour companies that you work with as well.
Basically, all of my articles, they're pretty much like general topics, because I was thinking it's missing information about Moldova, like generally in English. But now I'm thinking to do it more specific, as you said, and see how it works. Because in Moldova, we are a little bit shy when it comes to sell our products. I don't know, to sell ourselves, you know. It's like we are talking about it, but not very blunt, just a little bit, and go back to your safety.
Well, one of the things to think about is, I'm an American. If I'm searching for information on Moldova and your blog has provided me lots of great information, I would want to have a guide like you. So think of it also as a way to help the visitors to your website explore Moldova even more.
Thank you for the tips.
Yeah, you're welcome. I'm glad they've been useful.
We have in the meantime a question. If we refer to the posts on the social media platforms, is it necessary to include the hashtags at all times with the links?
So hashtags tend to work best on Instagram, I would say, in terms of social media platforms. And in terms of adding links to the hashtags, I'm not entirely sure, but I'm not entirely, usually hashtags are independent of links, but if I were promoting a page from my website on Instagram, Facebook, I would add a link to it, definitely. And I would also use the related hashtags, again, to draw in other people. And I would also, in Instagram, use services like Linktree, which allow you to link specific posts to your website pages. There's several free services that do that. But promoting your website on your social media platforms is a great idea, and to take advantage of hashtags to kind of draw in other people who are interested in that topic. I don't know if that answered that question completely.
We will be waiting for the feedback.
Yeah.
In the meantime, let's make the last call in case there is anyone who wants to ask something. If not, we will just wrap up the session. And just 1 second, please. Yes, Mr. Sergio said that it is a wonderful answer, and thank you. Okay,
good. Yeah. And that's, I mean, hashtags are a little bit different from keywords, but you can think of them a little bit in the same way. It's kind of what are people looking for that's around my business or my topic or the information I'm providing.
I believe.
Oh, and sorry, one other thing I was going to mention with content and keywords is don't forget to put the location of where you are. I think I've noticed with quite a few websites, there's an assumption that foreigners know all these places in Moldova. I don't. So assume that your potential customer doesn't know very much about your country, and provide them the context as to where is this located? How far is it from Chisinau? Because, yeah, for a lot of travelers, they're not going to know the same details that you know because it's your country.
Totally agree. Okay. Thank you very much for your today's intervention, which was, again, very useful. It's been really a pleasure to work with you and to have the audience present in the Zoom, and right from the beginning. Again, maybe it's a sign that the industry needed this tool, needed this subject to be tackled. We will see how the companies who have received free feedback from you will further perform. So far, they said that they are taking the time to process the information, which is, again, a good sign. Thank you once again for all your expertise and for being so kind to share everything you know in this field.
Thank you, and thank you for inviting me, and I hope it's useful. And again, this takes time, so the idea is to also play around a little bit and to experiment and to try different things. So,
yeah.
And thank you also for having me as well.
It's our pleasure, and we're honored. I will bring thanks to the audience as well, which was connected by now. the thing that remains is just to encourage you to follow us for more information and for more events which will come. And if you have any questions, please feel free to approach us either on Facebook, via email, or even in person at the Tourist Information Center from Chisinau. Thank you, and bye-bye to all.
Thank you. Have a great rest of the day. Bye.
Yeah.